Hello, and welcome to episode 52 of Flix and a Six. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Costanzo. With me, forever and always, the man, the myth, Ulysses S. Grant, Alessandro Bielsi. Say hello, Al.
I find that my quality of life improves the more hours a day I'm not wearing a shirt.
Nice. I thought you were going to say something like really mean, like the more hours of the day that you're not talking to me. Like, I really thought that's where it was going. I got sad before you finished the sentence. Well, I guess that qualifies as hello. On this week's episode, we're going to discuss what we're watching, Mark Ruffalo versus Ed Norton, the Uncharted movie that we deserve, Die Hard is a Christmas movie, all before diving into our flick of the week, Ant-Man and the Wasp. But first, Al, what are we drinking? Actually, you know what? But first, let me pause right there for a minute. Because this is episode 52. It's a very special episode. That means when this is done, if you want to watch all of our episodes once a week, it will take you an entire year. That's progress.
And
we did it, guys.
Definitely don't look into the fact that there's been more than 52 weeks since we started. Don't look into that at all.
Not while I'm boring.
By the way, I just want to comment on the near perfect synchronicity between our snapping and pouring of the beers, which we usually do not do synchronized at all.
Was it synchronized? Because I thought I heard it separate, but I'm like weirdly tense every time we do it. Like I'm gonna somehow screw it up horribly, even though
because
that
you
can't
have
happen.
screwed it up horribly several times.
But as bad as it gets, what's the worst that can happen?
Well, you've spilled beer, so that's the worst that can happen.
That's it.
That's pretty bad.
We've already done that, so it's not gonna get worse. I guess I could pour it on the computer, but I've done that too. But the computer survived. I don't know.
Allegedly, didn't it die on you?
No, I'm still using that computer. I did replace the battery, but that was just because it was like 17 years old. It's not true at all. That computer wouldn't work. That's a typewriter.
Forget about just a typewriter, though, but have you ever used or at least seen an old school word processor?
Yeah.
I remember we did not own one. We had an old typewriter when I was a kid.
Same.
Which, when you're a little kid, kind of fun to play with for no apparent reason.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, one day I came home and there was a word processor sitting on the table, and I was like, "What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that?
Vulgar child."
What the fuck is that thing that's like an imposter trying to pretend to be a computer?
You're not a typewriter or a computer.
Yeah, what are you? Because I'm not entirely sure. And I found out it was a word processor, and my dad, I think, borrowed it from work for some thing that he was doing. I don't remember what or why. But yeah, word processor.
One of our listeners is losing his mind right now because of an old story from college, where we were talking about writing papers. And I had mentioned, you know, how you used to write a paper on a typewriter? And he said, "What?" And I then realized how late in the game it was that I got a computer. And it just felt normal to me to have written a paper on a typewriter.
No, but the thing is, see, I never wrote a paper on a typewriter, I don't think. But you're old enough, we're old enough that they should know what a typewriter is.
No. He knows what a typewriter is. He was blown away by the fact that I wrote a paper on one, which is fair.
I'm like, even if your family had modernized to the point where you didn't have one, you were in the perfect prime years to have seen reruns of Murder, She Wrote. You know what a typewriter is.
Yeah. This is where the plot thickens. Maybe a part of the story that Damien has not actually heard yet. I had more than one typewriter, so we had like the legit one, like it's like really long. It's almost looks like a keyboard, like a musical instrument keyboard because it's gigantic, and it's got all sorts of niceties on it, and you can like actually backspace and do some pretty cool stuff.
It's a word processor.
It was a typewriter.
Ah.
Trust me. And then the other one that we had was actually our grandfather's typewriter from the war, and it was a briefcase that you could lug around
to send many wartime communiques.
Yeah, yes. Grandpa Wartime would use this one to communicate. Anyway, You should write a paper on a typewriter. Make you feel.
Yeah, the next Binchun article, I'll write on a typewriter.
That's good. And I'll scan it.
Yeah, exactly.
Another technology that's
actually I can do that. I just set up a brand new wireless printer and everything. I did a technology.
I just got a scanner like I don't know a few months ago, which is probably like the equivalent of me writing a paper on a typewriter. Right? Like it's just we're moving forward, but I'm still taking steps backwards.
No, I mean honestly, it still serves a real life function.
It does. It shouldn't anymore though. We should be done with that.
Well, I mean, what would you rather do? Just like snap a picture and send it in an email? Like,
I would not have to. I would prefer to not have to deal with paper at all.
Well, sure, fine, but the point is, most like if official documents still require it. You can't shoot an email real quick to person you're buying the house. Say, hey, we're totally buying this house. No, you have to sign papers and there's copies made, etc., so on.
I'm saying all of that stuff is just something that can get in the way. The only benefit of that is that there can be mistakes and somebody can back out.
Can't hack a typewriter.
Now, hang on. That's actually probably true. You'd have to have some time alone with it to like swap out some things.
I mean, I wouldn't really call that
knowing.
Hacking or just like a prank. Like if you switched all the letters on them, I suppose.
Is it just breaking it at that point? It's not hacking.
Just I took a sledgehammer to your computer. I hacked, or not to your computer, your typewriter. I hacked it.
It's just sabotage. I like it.
You know what? Actually, that's a good point. With the modern days now, with hacking and such, there's not a lot of good sabotage going on anymore.
What do you mean?
Sabotage is a word of a bygone era. You don't sabotage things anymore. That implies more of a mechanical, physical thing as opposed to hacking something. Usually,
right.
Hack something. Even when we sabotaged the Iranian nuclear power plants, we did it through hacking. No one sabotaged it. They gave them like a USB that they downloaded a Trojan horse, like worm virus, whatever.
I'm going to sabotage you in some way by the end of the year. I don't know. Just be on the lookout for it. It'll make it more challenging.
I will laugh so hard when my brakes are cut and I crash and I go careening off the cliff or something like that. There's that sabotage.
Anthony. Boom.
Well, Anthony.
You got me. Awesome. Shall we take a sip of this sucker? Wait,
sure.
I didn't let you tell them what it is.
I don't know. So if you stuck around with us after that, that was amongst our weirdest tangents we've ever done.
I'm all right with it.
Oh, no, sure. It's just, I could see maybe someone getting, to quote Schmidt from New Girl, when he was talking about David Foster Wallace, get to the sex already. So we're drinking Lord Hobo Brewing Company.
Great name.
It proudly presents Boom Sauce. So this is the second Lord Hobo that we've done on the show. We did one a while back, maybe 6 months ago.
Was it that long?
I think so. Maybe not. Maybe it was like 3-4 months. I don't know.
It was last time.
It was a while. So Boom Sauce is one of our New England style IPAs. It's a complex, unfiltered beer with great drinkability. Keep it cold and drink it fresh. Cheers.
Cheers. I'm a fan of this one.
Tasty.
It's not the best one, but it's far from the worst one. It's
a well-balanced one. It's not trying too hard.
Something drinkability. Isn't that what it said?
Yes, drinkability is definitely...
Wait, hang on. Can we do that for all of the beers that you make now? Can we just say something and then a generic term that actually fits it? That's how we'll describe all of them.
Yeah, this would be a sessionable IPA, I guess. Although I think it's fairly strong for probably too strong. Yeah, 7.8% alcohol by volume. So
comes in pints.
Of course.
Naturally.
So that's probably too strong to actually consider it sessionable. But for someone like me...
Depends on the kind of session you want to have.
I would consider it a sessionable IPA.
You can get weird. I like this one. I'm a fan.
By the way, I was thinking, I'm too lazy to go do it now, but I was thinking about earlier, if we had gotten on the line earlier, there's some...
On the line?
if we could put it out on the line earlier.
Online.
Gotten on the line earlier. I would have asked you whether we wanted to do a brief rundown, or not so brief in this case, of the beers to come, because as I told you earlier today, I have like 8, might even be 9 beers that I'm going to be bringing you in a few days.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll just post a little picture of the hops to come.
I was just thinking, it could be like a, drink along with the artists type of thing. Hey, these are the beers coming if you want to pick any of them up, and you can match it up to the episode that comes out.
We can make that happen.
Also, there will be a theme for like 6 of the 8 beers or whatever it is.
I like that.
That will be easily identifiable.
I like when you do things like this and I just have no idea what's coming.
Oh yeah, I love it.
You're gonna have a hard time topping your best though.
Which one's my best?
Never tell me the odds.
Oh,
come on!
No, I didn't know you meant specifically about like surprising you with beer. Sorry.
Pure gold. Well,
that was a pretty good surprise.
They were all pretty solid. That was a solid surprise. But you do find ways like, hey, can you come help me carry this thing in? And you open your trunk and it's just beer, like as if you're selling me something out of the trunk of your car. I
basically had a pallet of beer in my trunk.
It's pretty great. Pretty great. I
gotta keep you guessing, and that's what makes the show fresh and exciting. Like when I tell you on air that I'm gonna read you nerd porn poetry.
Oh my God, you're just such a wild card for me. It's great though, but it keeps it interesting, and I appreciate it. Like we talk about this. I give a general rundown of what we're going to talk about in the beginning of the show. This is something that we started doing 10, 15 episodes ago. So that's like the first time you get an insight into what I'm going to put in there, unless you've looked at my notes, which is fine. I'm okay with you looking in there. Sometimes it's not even done before you take a look. But what I love is we don't put your news/nuggets notes.
Not only are they not in the rundown, but most of the time I also don't tell you what they are either.
Which is great, and I really like that because we try to just this show is just a conversation between the two of us, and people listen to it, which is great. But that's how you keep it real.
If you've been listening for a while, you now understand how weird both of us are. Because if that's the type of conversation off air, our conversations are often the same way. We don't always talk about movies and stuff for 2 straight hours. We'll sometimes talk about other things.
I was gonna say sometimes it's 3. But go on. We always talk about movies for 2 hours at least, minimum.
But yeah, we go on tangents. We circle back.
The good circle back. That's a stand-up comedy thing.
Yes, definitely. That thing where you make that one small joke early and then you find a way to bring it back later.
Yeah, and I don't say that we're good at that. I'm just saying that that's where that comes from, and that's the type of storytelling I appreciate.
Actually, we had a great example of that the other day. So I'm going to leave names out of this story.
Excellent.
But some of them have maybe been mentioned as friends of the podcast before. Some of them. Sorry, I had a moment there. Friends of the
we podcast. Lost them.
The podcast. Some of them have not been mentioned as friends of the podcast. Maybe none of them have. Maybe all of them have. I'm not going to mention any names. Anthony may be able to figure out who I'm talking about. You'll be able to figure out the group of people I'm talking about, if not all the specific players.
Got it.
So
this is the most absurd game of Clue I've ever played.
I don't want to out anyone too badly on any of this.
Don't worry, I'll do it.
So, the other day, a bunch of us went to a concert as a surprise gift to one of our friends. It was one of my friend's girlfriend's birthday, and he didn't tell her that all of us were coming. And then after the concert, that even more of us were joining them for a little party at a friend's cabin upstate.
Nice. That's fun.
So, the next morning, we had family breakfast together. It's a good time. 10, 11 people, something like that. And, we were all talking and joking, and a couple of us were talking about a certain friend of ours who was notorious, or is notorious, for dodging us when we make certain plans, specifically beach plans.
Okay. Is that me?
No, it's not you. Everyone who was part of the story was present at the table, so it was not you. So, no. You have said that you want to go to the beach, and then it doesn't work out. Yeah. This person said they were going to the beach with us the next day, one day, when we were all hanging out one night, and then we told him we'd pick him up at about 7:30 in the morning, and he texted us at 2:30 in the morning saying, "I'm not coming." So we woke up to that text message the next morning.
What a turd.
Yeah. There was very harsh words leveled at this person repeatedly and over the course of... It's been almost an entire year now.
Never let him live it down.
So we were getting on his case for this. His girlfriend was now getting on his case for this. At the time, she was not part of the picture of the story at that point. And she was like, I want to go to the beach. So now he's finally possibly going to the beach. This friend is quite pale in complexion. Now Anthony knows who we're talking about. So me and...
Said ghost.
Well, no, me and one of the people I've mentioned as friend of the podcast several times, person who's contributed beer-type items to the podcast.
Yeah. Everybody knows who you're talking about. Move on.
So we were getting on his case that I was like, when have you seen the sun anytime recently? If you're going to come to the beach with us, you might want to work on that base tan. He's like, yep, I've been busy. I have not been outside very much. And I haven't gone out and done much with you guys, et cetera, so on. And I was like, you're basically Gollum.
The rockin' pool is nice and cool. So juicy,
so now,
sweet.
Everyone laughs at this. And then he gets up as he, laughs at it and says, fuck you. He gets up and walks outside to grab something. And
please tell me it burns.
30 seconds later, other friend of the podcast makes an untoward comment about his romantic life vis-a-vis role-playing as Gollum.
No!
As you might imagine what that would be like.
That's horrible.
So, his girlfriend, who was laughing at the Gollum comment originally, now is screaming how she can't unhear that.
Well.
So everyone,
that's over.
Heads off their separate ways. But about 12 hours later, we all reconvened for more friend-type activities. And when I first walked in, I spoke to my pale friend and I said, "Oh, how are you doing, my precious?"
Oh, God. That's good.
And that's how it all comes full circle.
Yeah, I like that. Good night, everybody.
He said, "This isn't becoming a thing." I said, "Oh, no, it's already a thing."
Yeah, it's not becoming. We've already closed the evening. We're about ready for the sequel. All right, so that being said, moving into our stories. So, Al, how many nuggets would you say you have?
2.
You got 2. All right, so I got 4. We'll work them in. Well, I'll throw it to you every once in a while. Al's got some oldies, as he described them to me earlier. So we missed the last week. Work conflicts. Things happen. This is our fun time, and we missed it. So Al's got some what used to be news to discuss.
It's now.
So we'll get into that. And for our first old, I have something. What we're watching. And I was curious. I know you were, I think last we spoke, you were finishing The Wire. Was that?
Yes, I finished that a couple weeks ago.
And what are you on to anything new these days?
I usually pick one main thing to quote unquote binge, and I don't have that right now. Mm-hmm. I was catching up on the first few episodes of Succession, though.
I'm not familiar.
That's a new show on HBO. It's
okay.
Kind of seems to be loosely based on the Murdoch family, as in Rupert Murdoch, CEO, founder, et cetera, so on of News Corp.
Right.
Because the show's creator actually wrote a treatment for a movie based on him, and it never got greenlit anywhere. And now this is a purely fictional show, although it seems quite heavily influenced by his research into the Murdochs going-ons. The best way I could describe the show is if you found a way to cross Billions with Arrested Development.
Okay. I still need to catch up on Billions, but I see how that could be entertaining.
Yeah, it's something. And so Brian Cox plays the patriarch of the family, the Murdoch-esque character. And most of the other cast I actually really don't know from anything, with the exception of one of his sons being played by Kieran Culkin, who's playing nearly the same character he played from Scott Pilgrim, which is perfectly fine with me.
That's great.
He's funny.
That's awesome.
He's playing a much more devious version of that character, basically.
I can't think of Brian Cox.
Actually, that's probably a better word for it.
I can't think of Brian Cox without thinking of when he just says, "Give me that," and he bites the soap and throws it in Super Troopers. That's a great scene.
Yep.
It's almost
some of his finest
he was
work.
So frustrated, and that was real. That's how good that was.
Yes, he's a great actor. He's funny. He can be dramatic, serious, whatever.
So, all right. So is that what you're binging ish now, or is it out? Like the full season?
Yeah, no. So I think maybe like 6 episodes have aired. So I watched like 3. I watched the first 3 in one weekend, and then I think I've seen the first 4. I think I'm behind like 2 episodes. But I've been kind of jumping between some stuff. I've been getting back into playing some more games actually lately because I had like a 4 or 5 months hiatus where I didn't play anything. So
time to get back in.
That's between that and the Yankees. A lot of my free media time has been curtailed. I haven't been watching a lot of shows lately.
That's fair. I recently stumbled into Cheers, which I have never watched, and
that's a throwback.
Talk about oldies. I'm enthralled with this show. I absolutely love it. It's so good, and I had never seen it before. It's so funny because you can never see Cheers. I'm a living example of that, and get a lot of references just because they're just all over the place. Right, like
and they filtered into a lot of media, like jokes and riffs on it.
Yeah, and it's for whatever reason, like those things are still funny, and you know where they're from, but you don't appreciate them as much until you actually are familiar with the source material. So I started watching it. I'm like, I put one episode on. I was actually I was waiting for Kim. We were gonna watch something, and I was like, oh, let me throw something on for 30 minutes. So like when she comes back, like I'll be ready to watch the next thing.
I'm guessing it wasn't Cloud Atlas.
It was not. But
the saga continues.
6 episodes later, I was like, man, I love this show. And I've watching a significant amount of it lately. And part of what triggered this is I lately have just become this huge fan of Ted Danson.
Okay.
He's wonderful.
I used to not have much of an opinion on him. I don't know. I was kind of like, I don't get it. Mm-hmm. And then I actually grew to appreciate him more in Fargo and then in Curb Your Enthusiasm.
So that makes me want to watch Curb Your Enthusiasm even more. We've talked about this. I do need to watch that. But I recently, so when I was younger, I watched Becker and I enjoyed it. I liked him on that, and never thought anything of it. Recently watched the first 2 seasons, or the only 2 seasons currently, of The Good Place, and he is tremendous in that show. And I was like, man, this guy he's solid gold. And then when I came across Cheers on Netflix, I was like, all right. And I just started like playing through that. And he's wonderful. He's so funny. I just find him to be hysterical.
Well, you know what actually did kind of crack me up, but it was such a small snapshot that it's not like something that you could really lean into as much of an opinion, was in the first Ted movie where Ted and Mark Wahlberg, I can't even think of his character's name, they sit down to watch Cheers on DVD. He got like the whole box set of Cheers, and it had like all the outtakes, and he goes, yeah, they all talk shit about each other nonstop on the outtakes or whatever, like the commentary, and it's Ted Danson, and he's sitting down, and he goes, Woody Harrelson, smallest dick I ever saw on a man.
That's so great. But anyway, if you've never watched Cheers, I highly suggest it. I'm just really loving it. I'll check back in next week when I've finished the entire series, because that's the rate that I'm burning through it at this point. Moving on, let's jump back real quick. What are you playing?
Actually, no, wait, one more second. Sorry, because I thought about it while you were doing that, and I wanted to wait till you finished your Cheers story to circle back with something else. I wouldn't say that I'm actively watching because it's more of a one-time thing because it was a movie. I watched The Beach last night.
DiCaprio?
Yes.
That movie was twisted, right?
Yeah. Did you see it?
I think so. Does it turn into a video game at one point?
Yes, it does.
Okay, yeah, I saw that movie.
Super weird. The way I kind of described it to myself, I jotted some notes down in case maybe we possibly want to do an episode on it later on, because it fits an important theme of the show in that it's based on work by Alex Garland.
Okay.
And I said it's like Apocalypse Now meets. No, shit, I can't remember. It's why? Apocalypse Now meets Lord of the Flies meets Scott Pilgrim? Question mark.
Okay, that's
because that video game
scene.
That video game sequence felt like something straight out.
So
of
weird. It does. It does. That's the most vivid thing that I remember from that acid trip.
Yeah, it was a weird movie. It was a pretty good movie though.
Yeah, I'll have to rewatch it because I watched that younger years. I feel like.
I mean, it came out in 2000, so
yeah, I would check it out again on that just not even that. You're not necessarily saying that it's good. It's just interesting.
No, I would actually say it's pretty.
It's
good.
Okay. That's good enough for me.
It had very mixed reviews, but I think it's one of those kind of people, quote unquote, didn't get it. Although I don't think there's that much to get.
Sure.
I think it's just one of those things that's not necessarily made for mainstream audience. Like that's
fair.
A thought experiment type of movie. I mean, that's the whole premise. But I did have an interesting time experiencing this movie, and the only reason I bothered to watch it because I had seen stuff about it a while back, and I was like, I have no interest. But once I found out that it was based on the novel written by Alex Garland before Alex Garland wrote and directed and et cetera, so on movies and stuff.
Yeah.
I had no idea about any of that. But both of us are pretty big fans of his now. Mm-hmm. So I was like, you know what? I have to go and watch this then. Because I know he had input into the making of the movie, but I know that it broke from some of the stuff from his book, but I think that the stuff that he writes is cool. So
yeah, that makes me even more interested to rewatch it. I'll have to check it out again, and then I'll watch Cloud Atlas. Sorry, I'm kidding. I swear to you that I will watch Cloud Atlas before I watch The Beach.
That doesn't seem like much of a promise.
It wasn't a promise; it was a swear.
Because when we finally record our Cloud Atlas episode in 2020.
When we're able to, when it's going to take you 2 years to get through all the episodes, we'll do. No, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Hold your breath.
Right now, I'm trying to hold my tongue.
I know, but I will. So, jumping back real quick, you said you started playing some games. What are you playing? Because that leads nicely into a different story that's coming up.
No, I just jumped back into a little Andromeda. I was playing a little sports stuff too.
Nice. I've been playing Mario plus Rabbids. It's real good. if you got a Switch and you don't have that game, you're doing it wrong. Give that one a chance.
No more Mario Tennis.
What'd you say?
No more Mario Tennis.
I've kind of cooled down on that one. That's one of those games that I feel like it's not as fun if you're not playing it with people. So I'm not certain that I'll hold on to that one for too long. Because when I play with people, I think I'd much rather play like a Mario Kart.
I can see that. Well, I mean, Mario Kart's definitely better for more people.
Sure. One game will ruin friendships. The other one will ruin relationships.
Oh, no.
No, I'm kidding. So speaking of video games,
speaking of ruining relationships.
Oh God! So there's this Uncharted. Are you familiar with Uncharted?
I never played them, but I'm familiar with them.
Okay, so for those of you not familiar, Uncharted is basically Indiana Jones, the video game. That's really all it is. It's phenomenal writing. It's great voice acting. Really awesome, fun stories that go a little too far, which is. All of these things so far scream Indiana Jones.
Wait, go too far how?
Explore the supernatural.
Oh, okay.
In 3 of the 4 games, I think they explore the supernatural, and the 4th one is the best one, in my opinion, because they don't do that.
So it's Indiana Jones, 2 of which dealing with Christianity, and one of them with ancient Indian or Hindu, I guess more specifically, and then one of them aliens.
Yeah, it's like heavily drawn influences from that, and it's like it's got the awesome storytelling and the intrigue of an Indiana Jones movie. It's got like the comedy and the pacing of a National Treasure.
Okay,
and it's just got the fun of a phenomenal video game, like a game that you can't put down.
Actually, wasn't the Infernal Machine also aliens? That was the Indiana Jones video game. I think it was a computer.
Oh, I have no idea.
That's like a pretty well-known one, though. Actually, you just randomly saw it come up in an article I was reading a few weeks ago. I was like, I didn't realize that had that sort of reach.
From my experience with Indiana Jones video games, they've all been trash. But
no, that one I think is
that good?
Was well regarded. Yeah, I mean it's older.
That makes me want to check it out. To be honest with you,
because 25 years old or something like that. I played a little bit of it actually. I think my brother played a significant amount of it. But yeah, no, I never finished that game. I only know bits about it.
So the title of this. Are you familiar with Nathan Fillion?
I am.
So he is the voice and mocap for Nathan Drake, who is the title character, or not title character, but the character of Uncharted. He's Mr. Uncharted, and he
plays Jonathan Uncharted.
He's awesome to the fans, right? And he's just the super great presence for that storyline, for that video game and that franchise. And he made his own Uncharted found film, and it's amazing.
Oh, okay.
It's amazing. It's 15 minutes of this is exactly what I want from an Uncharted movie. This is everything a video game movie should be, and I want the whole thing.
Well, and the funny thing is that one, while not quite to the levels now of Halo, has also been a long gestating movie project that's never come about.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say.
I was not going to say anything.
I didn't know you were done. You did the whole. Your body language suggested that there was something else to that. And
no, that was just how it was comfortable for me to sit. My
Can you end all sentences like that so it just keeps me on my toes? Amazing. Anyway, if you
so the audience can't hear this because it's a visual thing. I'm not wearing a shirt right now, and when me and Anthony jumped on this call. What's that?
It's awkward.
Yeah, when we jumped on this call at the beginning, I kind of had my computer tilted in such a way that you really couldn't see below the level of like my neck, and then I just leaned slightly forward in the chair, and Anthony goes, "And you're not wearing a shirt," and that was why.
He's naked.
And that was why. Whoa! I mean, speak easy with that. And that's why I opened the show talking about how much I enjoy being shirtless.
Yeah. There's your callback. and we're done here. So if you got 15 minutes, I would suggest you go check this out. Just look up Uncharted Found Film. It came out today, which is 2 days ago, if you're listening to this when we release it. But it's so fun. And what's so funny is he does such a great job of voicing that character that when I'm watching it, even though I know full well he voiced that character, I'm like, wow, it really sounds like him. Like it's too much. And he's like gone through a body transformation because he looks like exactly like the character in the game, which is it's fantastic. So give yourself 15 minutes, go watch it, have a good time, and then you can be as disappointed as I am that this is probably never going to turn into like a full thing.
Well, there's been a lot of speculation that he would play the role
as he should.
Ever did do the movie.
As he should. He's phenomenal. I love him.
I'm not too familiar with his work. I'm aware that he's kind of an icon in especially the nerd world. Sure. Actually, speaking of things that maybe possibly we will be binging, I started watching Firefly, which is I know how he got famous. I'm like 10 minutes into the first episode.
Oh, okay. I was actually considering doing that as well, so watch that together.
Yeah.
All right. So, but yeah, he's great. He's so much fun, and he is that character. So it's just perfect. They've also got a Stephen Lang. Are you familiar with him? If I don't say like what he's in,
Avatar.
Yeah. He's playing his counterpart Sully, who's just this like old cigar smoking guy that's also into this like whole like he's like a schemer and basically taught him everything he knows. Kind of guy.
That's in the games or just in this?
No, in this. Actually, I don't think it's him in the game. I don't know who does. I don't think it is, but he's in the actual the short.
Okay.
And it's great, and he pulls it off really well. Actually, that makes me wonder if it is him, but I don't think so because the voice sounds different to me. Whereas as Nathan Fillion is like obviously Nathan Drake. But that was fun, and then it's just like all of the nonsense. Like it's a lot of silly jokes, a lot of like kind of inappropriate comments, and just like nonsensical action. And they do this really fun over the shoulder. Like, I don't know, 1.5, 2 minute sequence of him shooting, which is very reminiscent of the over the shoulder view of the game.
Okay.
So it's just really cool. It's just a really well done, like, film capture of what you would expect to see in a movie based on that material. And it's just, I really want it so bad because I loved those games. That is the story, like playing the fourth game is some of the best storytelling that I've experienced.
Okay.
Regardless of media.
Those were PlayStation exclusive, right?
They were.
Just trying to think of why I hadn't played any of them, and I'm thinking that was the case, yeah. Was that the first one they introduced? I know they made a big deal about his brother. Was that the first one they introduced his brother in? Or?
Yeah. And that was awesome. I think that was Troy Baker, I believe, played his brother. Also,
I don't remember, but I do remember there being a big deal about that.
But yeah, you should definitely. Honestly, that's like one of those things where you can just go watch the story on YouTube and enjoy it. Like because it's that cinematic. You're not missing anything by skipping the action sequences if you just want the story. So it's a lot of fun. And I would definitely suggest it. But I really, oh man, would I love that movie. Moving on. Give me a nugget.
Star Wars news.
Ooh.
Which was
Star Wars
news a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
It's looking like Lando's back.
Yeah. Saw that.
Billy D. Which
Princess.
Which makes perfect sense, being that Circumstance is not under their control. They no longer have any of the main original cast now. And also felt like it wasn't right that they didn't have him in episodes 7 and 8. I mean,
I stand by my theory that he is the master code breaker. I really feel like that he is someone that Maz Kanata would be super in love with.
I could see it. I mean, he's a charmer, right?
Yeah.
Although she liked Chewbacca, who never really struck me as one, so.
She loves that Wookiee.
She does. Although she was into the Master Codebreaker, who was supposed to be very debonair and was played by Justin Theroux, so.
Or was he?
Allegedly.
Dun, dun. I'm still, you know what? Until there's a reason, like, until you prove this one wrong, I'm still going to assume that's the case. Because I prefer it, to be honest with you.
I mean, it could be an interesting way. It would seem a little bit ham-fisted of a way to do that, but
God, that saying just creates the worst visual.
I'm sorry?
I just picture you with hams, just swinging them around. It's terrible.
I mean, someone once compared my forearms to hams.
That's fair.
In case those of you who don't know anything about me, especially visually, were wondering, without sounding like I'm, pumping myself up too much here, I'm fairly large. I work out a decent amount.
What's the deal with your cousin? They don't make shirts his size?
Wait, that's right. Who said that?
Your boss.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
So good.
I actually thought I was thinking it might have been like James or someone like that, one of your friends.
That would be fitting as well. I'm a fan. I love Billy D. I would love to see him back for the 9th movie. And I think
that's not the only episode 9 casting news. Something that has me nearly equally excited is that it seems all but certain that Kerry Russell will be joining in an important role in episode 9.
All right.
I'm a big fan of Kerry Russell.
Mhm.
Those of you who've been listening for a while know that I'm a very big fan of The Americans,
Mm-hmm.
and she is most excellent on that. So sign me
Most
up for
excellent.
sign me up for a leading role for Kerry Russell.
Very
I'm a
cool.
fan.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm really excited, man. I'm excited to see where this movie goes.
They're going to be starting shooting like this month.
Yeah. Well,
It's like very imminent.
when is that going to come out? Is that next
December,
December?
because they're finally wisened up a bit and are putting it back on that schedule, because
Which makes sense.
that is at least in part the reason that the Solo movie didn't succeed financially.
Sure. Yeah. Just give us time to build that anticipation.
That's right. Also, it's a pretty soft slate of movies typically in December that it's facing up against.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Again, I do not have anything more to say.
Okay. It's just I'm looking at you. You're doing this weird thing where you're leading me. You're leading me to pause.
I mean, like, it's
Are
not
you
like I
watching
stopped-
something? Are you watching something in the back?
First of all, I'm never not watching something in the back when we do
Fair.
this. So yeah, once I finish my point and I look off into the distance, it's because I finished the point and I'm watching what's on the screen.
We're a mess today. We're just an absolute mess.
I can understand if like you saw me with my mouth open where it looked like I had more to say, but I both times I'm quite sure I closed my mouth. I did not look like I was going to speak more.
So my final two things go hand in hand, and they all came out of the roast of Bruce Willis.
Oh yeah, I'm interested to see that. I feel like I saw a ton of stuff about that today.
Right.
I had no idea that it was imminent.
Same. The two things that I pulled out here were Ed Norton saying something about. I honestly like. I read a little bit about it, and I just like don't care because it was something along the lines of he wanted to do the Hulk, but would have preferred a better script type of thing.
Yes.
And it's just like I don't. At this point, I don't care. What I'm curious. Here's my pitch. My question for you: Mark Ruffalo or Ed Norton for the Hulk? Go.
I mean, I wouldn't really say that I particularly have any attachment to Mark Ruffalo, because outside of this role, I honestly don't think I've ever. Now You See Me is the only other thing I've seen him in.
Okay.
I've seen Edward Norton in a bunch of other things. I think he's a better actor
Really?
in general. Yeah, Edward Norton's a really good actor.
I think Edward Norton's a phenomenal actor. I don't know that I would pit the two against each other.
I mean, I thought. Well, they're definitely different actors.
Yeah.
I thought he did a really good job. He was one of the only reasons that I think that movie wasn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he did a very good job as Bruce Banner.
But who's Bruce Banner? Do you prefer his?
Well, at this point, it's unfair to compare because Mark I was just call him Mark Scruffalo. Mark. Because
That's
what
when
I was
he's in
trying to
hiding.
say was Mark Ruffalo's screen time, and it became Mark Scruffalo, which I mean, let's be honest, he's not always cleanly shaven.
That's fair.
Mark Ruffalo's
God.
screen time is now
Mark
easily
Ruffalo.
3 times the amount that Edward Norton had, so it's a much bigger body of work
Sure.
to address. I think that now that they've kind of figured out what they want that character to be, I enjoy him well enough in the role, but he did nothing for me in the first Avengers. He did very little for me in Age of Ultron. I still think that the whole thing with him and Black Widow was
It's getting real low.
was really like out of left field. It felt completely like forced into that whole movie. There was zero chemistry with them on screen. There still is zero chemistry with them on screen, so I'm really glad they finally ditched that romantic plot. I still team Cap and Black Widow because those two had pretty obvious chemistry on screen in The Winter Soldier, and even in the newest Avengers and Infinity War, even though they're not doing a romantic thing, the two of them work really well on screen together. But I would say that now that they've figured out in Ragnarok and Infinity War, I think that they have actually figured out that character. and his portrayal of that character, because those two, I actively enjoyed him on screen as Bruce Banner. I did not in the first two things he was in.
Oh, that's fair. I was curious where your take was on that, because I really, really love Mark Ruffalo. I love everything that I've seen him in. So I was happy to, I don't necessarily know if I would have a choice of who I would pick over who. The only reason I would have preferred Ed Norton is I hate when you break continuity.
Yes.
Like, that drives me absolutely
especially when
crazy.
there's not really like a reason to, like, if something happened where like the actress died, but you're not done with that character, I can understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're doing that sort of movie and one of your leads passes, you know,
Right.
or something, or is arrested, or something happens, and it's like, well, we can't just get rid of this. It's not like some secondary or tertiary character that we could just like explain away or just disappear without saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like they did that with one of the Warriors 3 in Thor: The Dark World. It was, I forget who it was the first time, and then it was Zachary Levi in the second one. You didn't even realize it because he's behind a big doofy mustache.
Right.
And like that sort of character, it's inoffensive to recast if you need him just to be around for 2 minutes.
Now, where I am glad that it's Mark Ruffalo, because then we wouldn't have gotten all these really funny stories like the one of him airing Ragnarok. I love that. I also think that in the more lighthearted take that they use the Hulk in to get some laughs and to get you kind of to not be depressed by everything that's going on in these movies, because let's face it, if you took the comedy out of these movies, it's just really dark and it would be torture.
Yeah. It would be the DCEU.
Ed Norton, it can be funny.
Yeah.
But his take was a lot more all around serious.
Yeah.
Where I feel like he wouldn't work in this writing of that character. Though they would have probably changed the writing of the character.
Well, yeah, I think that they would. We wouldn't have this version of the Hulk.
Yeah.
It would be a different version of the Hulk and Bruce Banner. And that was part of the reason I think that it didn't work for me so much on screen, especially in the first one. Because I think they were still writing the same character, but with a different actor. They didn't mesh.
Okay, that's fair.
Because I could totally see Edward Norton.
I'm always angry.
That line. Yes, I could totally see him delivering that line, and it just fell flat for me as Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah, because Mark Ruffalo's delivery of it, which I feel was more the direction of it, was I'm always angry. Yeah.
I could see Edward Norton making that line pop.
Yeah. That being said, one of the things that he said that he's grateful that he's not part of it and contractually obligated to be in those films is that he wouldn't have been able to do a few other things. One of which
he's only done a few other things.
A favorite of ours, Grand Budapest Hotel.
That was going to stop him from doing Grand Budapest.
I don't know. That's what it says in that thing. But
he only has like 8 lines.
I know, but I love that movie.
No, I do too, and he's
so
funny
good.
in that. But it's just a small role.
And do you think
know what I mean?
I killed her? Oh my goodness! Yeah, if you haven't seen Grand Budapest Hotel, please do. Fantastic flick. The other thing that came out of that roast was a quote that Bruce Willis says that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. I know that you are the end all be all of Die Hard, but you're also wrong. So that's all. That's all I've got on that. Moving on.
Yeah, I would rather take what's his name's word for it. The director, McTiernan.
Die Hard's a Christmas movie. That's it.
Yeah, honestly, it's one of those things where I think you can have your objections, but you're shouting into the wind.
Sure.
Honestly, you know what that argument is equivalent of is the whole thing about whether a hot dog is a sandwich.
Is it?
It's 100%.
Is that the same thing?
It's 100% a sandwich, and anyone who's vehemently opposed to that is also screaming in the wind.
No, I meant like, is that a thing? Like, is that an actual argument?
Wait, are you serious? You didn't know that's a thing?
I've never heard of that.
It's a huge thing on the internet for like years.
I think
just like that.
It would be one of those things that would make me pause, but push come to shove, yes.
Well, 2 things. One, Does it really matter?
Bread meat sandwich.
And
It's
two,
two,
more
right?
importantly, yes, it's absolutely a sandwich.
Oh man, you made me lose my headphones on that one.
I know, I saw it. It was great.
That was good. Yeah, 100%. I will. Real funny side note here. So, I'm a huge fan of Arrow and Flash and those shows.
Sorry, I'm watching in the background. I muted, obviously, Spider-Man: Homecoming, and I forgot how ridiculous that scene when he's trapped in the vault is.
So good. So good. Big fan of Flash and Arrow, and there's a scene in there where and my good friends and I have had this conversation. We joke about Die Hard, it being a Christmas movie all the time because it is fun. And I have my phone in my hand and I'm watching Arrow, and I get a text and it says it's from Chris and James, and it's a group text, and he's like, Nicole doesn't believe me. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Yes or no? As that text comes through on the screen, Oliver goes, my favorite Christmas movie is Die Hard. And I went, whoa. So I rewound it, recorded it with my phone, and sent that as my response.
Perfect.
It's just wonderful. And Bruce Willis is wrong. And also, I used to really, this is like a really silly thing. I used to really, really love Bruce Willis.
He's an asshole.
Until, Kevin Smith's accounts of Bruce Willis and working with him.
Oh, I kind of forgot that was a thing. No, in general, he's just a cranky old man now.
Yeah, he seems it.
Like, he's a good actor.
It's
He's
upsetting.
just a cranky old man.
Yeah, for sure.
Honestly, it's kind of the same thing with Robert De Niro, I think.
Yeah, he's a prankster.
I mean, he's older, so he's more allowed to be cranky, but still.
I guess. I feel like Bruce Willis was just always cranky, though.
I have to be honest. Bruce Willis, I was shocked when I heard that they were doing a roast of Bruce Willis.
Didn't think that would go well.
I just didn't think it would be on the table.
I want to watch it because I just feel like it'd be cringy.
Well, that too, but if you gave me a list of all the people who are quite accomplished in Hollywood, he would end up very low on my list of people I would guess would be up for a roast. Like, meaning that he would agree to do it. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think he doesn't seem like the type of person to have a good time with it.
He does seem like the type of person that would owe up if he lost a bet, though. And maybe he lost a bet.
Sure, I guess I could see him being honor bound to go through with something where he do so. But he's good for an occasional wry one-line joke, but doesn't seem like a guy who enjoys a good belly laugh.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Especially
he was pretty great in that episode of Friends.
I was not aware he was in an episode of Friends.
It's pretty silly. He does some making fun of himself in
who I could see being roasted is someone like Tom Hanks.
Oh, absolutely. Like
Tom Hanks has gone on SNL and he's made fun of himself and stuff like that. Like, I would watch the hell out of a roast of Tom Hanks.
Yeah, I think the world could use it.
Sure, but the biggest thing is I could see him totally being on board for it.
Yeah, I can see that too. I love all these memes of him. It's like another woman steps forward and accusing Tom Hanks of being a nice guy.
Yeah,
I love that. Like, that's just so on point for him.
I know we recently talked about how we wouldn't be surprised anymore.
That would surprise me. Yeah,
that one would hurt.
I think I might quit movies. That would hurt. Anyway, do you have any? You have another nugget, I believe. Correct?
Yes. Although, I'm going to have a little bit more harder time to conversationally talk about it, so I'm hoping you'll pick up the slack a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the newest trailer for Skyscraper?
No.
You know how we got really mad at the Jurassic World final trailer?
Yes.
This is that.
No.
Yep.
The last trailer for Skyscraper I saw
might be worse.
Was him jumping off the crane into the building. And then I think he gave his leg to his wife so that she could stop the elevator. I'm not certain. The scenes were kind of jumbled.
Isn't it?
What'd you say?
See, this is the thing I'm saying I'm going to have trouble with because I saw it like 10 days ago.
Yeah, okay.
And I haven't seen it since then. because it made me mad.
Mm.
And this isn't a movie that I particularly wanted to go see, unlike Jurassic World.
Right.
But it was another one where I was like, I already thought the thing with him hanging from the leg was too much to show. And this showed way more and like gave a lot of like more insight into some of the motivations behind the people carrying out this plan, as well as showing his family being used as hostages specifically.
Oh, okay, then I definitely didn't see that because at this point I have no concept as to what the motivation of the villains of the film.
No, they showed a bunch of Nev Campbell fighting people in it. Like it's got a lot more on it, and I was like, but why?
Yeah.
And this one, like, unlike the Jurassic World one, which came out like 2 or 3 months before the movie came out, this came out like I said 10 days ago. And that movie, did it just come out, or is it coming out in a couple of days?
It's out now, and bombing, I believe.
Yeah, which this goes into that theory we've discussed about when they release a trailer like that right before, or they lift the embargo way before the movie comes out. So that was what I was guessing was the case. Is oh shit, the tracking numbers on this must be god awful because
let's tell them what happens.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I had very little incentive to see the movie, and now I feel I have approximately zero.
You know what though? I feel like this is going to be a real fun. I'm sitting on the couch. I want to watch a movie. I'm too lazy to get up to grab one of my movies. This is on. I didn't see it. Hit play and not like the time that I spend with it.
True, but it also seems like the type of movie that is meant to be viewed cinematically.
It's a spectacle.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm quite sure I will not be spending a dime on it.
That's probably fair. If somebody asked me to go see it though, I'd be like, okay.
I suppose.
Because the big problem here is I've loved everything that I've seen The Rock in.
Well, you've seen a lot of The Rock lately. He's been in 3 movies already in the past, like 6 months or 9 months or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
man, did he kill it in
Jumanji? Like, he's been like the marquee star of 3 movies in the past like 9 months. And like, I'm guessing I haven't seen anything or any trailers. I'm sure he's in something soon.
So, like, when he does a movie like this, like, what do? Do they just limit the paper that he can put in his money printing machine?
I have no idea.
It's weird.
Actually, I guess I'll be seeing him in something else soon. I'm pretty sure the new season of Ballers is going to be out in like a month.
I have to check that show out.
You don't have to.
I do because I like him.
It's one of those shows that I don't quite hate watch like I do The Walking Dead. But
never mind. If you're feeling this way about it, then
no.
I don't need another one of those in my life.
So, important differences. 1, there's less episodes. 2, the episodes are half as long. 3, there's no commercials.
Wait, hang on. Are the episodes half as long?
Yeah, they're like 22 minutes, so.
Yeah, so no.
Yeah, those episodes are like, what, 42 minutes, right? Filling an hour and a half?
42 minutes of commercials.
Yeah, and then the other 42 minutes are show.
The other 22 minutes is show.
That's your hour and a half.
That's brutal.
Go on. No, so it's much shorter. They're 22-minute episodes. There's no commercials since it's on HBO.
All right. It's easier to get through.
It's definitely easier to get through. Like I said, it's less episodes per season.
It's easier to go, I'll give it another shot.
Also, the only reason that I watch it, or that anyone should watch it, is that it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a very bad show, though.
Okay.
Don't let anyone lie to you. It's a bad show.
Like Entourage?
Well, I couldn't get into Entourage, but yes. It's basically Entourage for football players instead of movie.
Right.
Stars.
And that's what I had understood about it, which makes me actually want to watch because I thoroughly enjoyed watching Entourage. If you want to critique
they share a common factor, 2 common factors. They're both on HBO and they were both executive produced by Mark Wahlberg. So
yeah. It's a good Entourage is a good time. Maybe I will check it out.
It's fun. It's fine. It's the type of thing that had I never started watching it, I probably wouldn't start now. But since I've been watching it, like I don't make an appointment TV. When I sit down to watch it, I sit down to watch it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair. Sweet.
I will tell you that when they aired the first season of it, I was very offended that because they aired it back to back with that showed The Brink, which was Jack Black, Tim
Yeah.
Robbins, Asif Manvi, and
You
the
liked
two
that,
of them.
didn't you?
They debuted at the same time. They aired back to back first seasons. What?
You liked that show, didn't you?
I loved that show.
Yeah.
And they picked up both of them after their first seasons aired, and then retroactively canceled The Brink and kept Ballers. And I almost threw something through a wall. The Brink was really good. You should watch that because there was just one season, half-hour episode, 22 episodes.
Is there any sort of closure though if I watch one season?
I mean, the season was self-contained.
Okay, that's good. That's all I need.
I mean, this was 3-4 years ago, so I may be misremembering slightly, but it didn't end on a cliffhanger. I'm pretty sure.
I was gonna say you could, even if you set up some threads, as long as like the main.
No, there was threads set
resolved.
up for the show to continue, but the season was a closed arc.
Okay, that I'm okay with. I just if your whole gimmick is like the story doesn't end because we have to, it's gonna continue.
No.
Yeah,
you would enjoy that show. It's funny.
I would check
and it's
that out.
It's smart funny. It's a smart funny show with a lot of dumb funny jokes.
That's good. That's a good mix. That's exactly Jack Black.
Well, the funny thing is, I really haven't necessarily been a big fan of Jack Black over the years, but he was perfect for this show, and I enjoyed him. And him and Tim Robbins, Tim Robbins was really funny in this. And what's his name is in it? It's also I forgot. He's also a lead, but I kind of forgot because his story is completely separate from those other three guys. Pablo Schreiber is also in it.
Cool. Maybe I'll check that. That was HBO too. You said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a 10-episode series, I think.
Well, I just meant more along the lines of then it's on HBO Go and I can watch it.
Yeah.
No problem. Awesome. Maybe I will check that out. I don't. That's it for Nuggets.
Yeah, I'm good on Nuggets.
So shall we move into our flick of the week?
Sure.
Ant-Man, which we already discussed.
And
having
the Wasp.
And the Wasp. Great suit. Love the Wasp suit. That thing's bonkers.
Also, even though they made the joke in the trailer, I still got a legitimately good chuckle out of him talking about, wait, she's got wings and blasters? Well, you couldn't do that for me? No, I could.
You know what happened? Yeah, that was good. That was good. But do you know what happened here that I feel like it happens a lot in movie trailers, but I feel like doesn't happen a lot in Marvel trailers, is a quip or line that is not actually in the movie.
Yeah, that happens pretty commonly, I guess.
Yeah, but it doesn't. I feel like they're usually pretty good about it.
Yeah, I guess you're probably right. I don't think there has been. I'm sure there must have been something somewhere along the way, but I can't.
Or if so, maybe it was like a short thing, like it was like a visual that it didn't end up in the movie. But like there was the problem here is that I had seen the trailer like 6 million times, and I only saw the movie once. So there's a good chance that maybe I blinked or something. But it's a long enough segment that I don't think I would have missed it. Where he's standing side by side with Ant-Man is standing side by side with a Wasp and goes, "I'll go high, you go low."
Yeah. And
she throws back in his face, I have wings. Why would I go low?
Yeah.
And I think that's silly. And it fits perfectly. But that correct me if I'm wrong, or if you remember, that wasn't in the movie.
No, I feel like it was.
Maybe it was. Maybe I did somehow miss it.
Or maybe I'm just remember seeing it in the trailer a bunch, but I thought it was.
I just don't remember when it would have been, and if it it is possible that it happened, but I might have just missed it. But anyway,
yeah, I forget what scene that was in now.
What I really did like about this, which is great. This is the opposite of my angst for trailers. This movie, there was a decent. I saw the trailer a decent amount of times. What I loved about it is I feel like 90% of what I took away from the trailer happened really soon in the movie, which leaves the rest of it open, which I really enjoy. Because when you know a big thing is coming because it hasn't happened yet, you can kind of piece together where it's going to go down. And I feel like they actually played the trailers out properly for this movie.
The funny thing is that kind of happened to me with The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
But in a way that I actually didn't completely hate, because what happened was as they're escaping on the transport ships, I'm like, wow, it's a pretty dark finale. And I was like, and I at that point, because I was watching with you at that Cinemark theater,
yeah,
and they had 45 minutes of trailers, so I lost all concept of when the movie should have ended, like meaning like what time.
Yep.
And
I'm familiar with that move.
as they were flying away, I'm like, okay, wow. Because at that point it had been about 2 hours or so, and I'm like, wait a minute, what about all that shit they did on that big white and red planet?
What about that ice planet?
God, there's so much movie left.
Yeah. That's pretty great. But in this case, I feel like the things that were left out were things that were so obviously like finale action sequences.
Well, yeah, I'll say one thing for this. Based on the trailers, unlike something like Skyscraper or Jurassic World, I didn't really know what the movie was going to be fully about.
Yes.
Like I had ideas about certain threads.
I'm glad that you bring that up.
Now, I did happen to read some stuff that was not spoilery, but hinted more towards where the central focus was, namely the search for Janet Van Dyne. I just didn't realize it. I knew that was going to be a thread of the movie. I didn't realize that was what its sole central plot arc would be. At least not based on the trailers. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. Well, based on the trailers and also your predisposition to the character and how they did that story, and since they nailed it so well the first time, that you think, oh, like for some reason there was definitely a piece of my like in the back of my head that just was like, oh, Ant-Man means it's a heist movie. Like yeah. Right? Like there was that association. It took me like, I don't know, a few like maybe like the opening act like to gain my footing and realize, oh right, I can't think that. Like that's not what this is. This is just another movie in this whole universe. Which is fine. I wasn't upset by it.
You fell for the 21 Jump Street thing. Just do it like the last one.
Yeah, I 100% did. Because I loved the heist movie. That was great. That was really
and
fun.
This one certainly did still have elements to that.
It sure did, but it wasn't like that was like the focus of it though.
Yeah, no, it was more of a rescue mission / race against time.
Right, which is awesome and works out really well. The movie plays out really well. The pacing is solid. I will say the only thing off about the pacing is the normal slow start to something. I'm not 100% sure this is how the movie started or if this is just what happened in the theater that I was in. So maybe you can clear this up for me. Watching a trailer, the trailer ended, screen is black, Michael Douglas starts talking.
I guess.
Like we were watching the movie and it just immediately started with Michael Douglas speaking with nothing on screen, like as soon as the trailer ended. So that's why
I feel like there may have been a couple of beats between, but I mean it has kind of that cold open and then gets right into the flashback. There
were no beats. And that's why I feel like there was some sort of like wonky transitioning that happened when they played it.
No, I was properly prepared for the movie to start.
Okay, we were not. So we were watching the movie, and we're just like, well, we're watching the trailers. Forgive me. So we're watching the trailers, and it's like, and then I hear his voice. I'm like, oh, that's fun. Wait, hang on. Oh, the movie's on. I was like, wait, what? Luckily, it was just a recap of where we are today, which is fine because I am so familiar with the MCU that I know where we stand. So that was good. But I was definitely just, I was thrown off to the point where we were all kind of like, you know, when you turn, you just turn and look at somebody and you do the what? You don't say anything. You just, what?
Yep.
Is it on? Is it not on? Did I miss something? Did they screw up? Did they turn the lights off yet? What's happening here? But yeah, the movie started like abruptly for us. But anyway, what they did, what I felt was really nice is, for a lot of the other Marvel movies, if you don't see the first in a series, like in a small series, you don't get like the full recap. I feel like the way that they did, because the recap is actually super crucial to the story in this case, which is probably why they did it.
Which also is funny because it's the one that I felt that needed it the least. But for a newer audience, it was very important. But I was like, this is almost exactly the exact same scene you showed when you talked about it in the flashback in the first one.
Yeah. Almost as if it might even be that same flashback.
I think it is. I think they just added a bit of narration.
Yeah. which is fine. I was okay with it. I think it was a good move, even though I was super familiar, and I had also recently just watched Ant-Man. I think I would have appreciated it more if I hadn't seen the first one.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I didn't need it because I've seen the first one several times.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, yeah, no, I got the whole story. Like, you could have done this shorter, but for someone less familiar with it, probably very welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It was a good open, though, because even though I was familiar with it, it was cool to set the pace, like set the understanding, like this is the focal point, and let's move on.
Well, definitely, if you had any doubt about what the movie was going to be about, you didn't after that was over.
That's true. We're going to find her. She's lost. We're going to find her. That's your plot.
Yeah.
Which is awesome, and it leads to some pretty amazing antics along the way. Before we get into spoiler territory, a couple of things. Paul Rudd is magical. I love that man.
Especially in that one scene.
Where he's doing magic?
No, that too. That thing where that magical thing happens?
Yeah. He's fantastic. He's so much fun, and there's so many elements in this, in his delivery, in the timing of the jokes, in the setups of the scenes, that just like, it's like I Love You Man in the MCU. Like the jokes are just on point with that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like he's just so fun. And you know what it is? He just seems so like just so naturally funny and so genuine. I think that's why it works.
Yeah.
Like he's not at the same level of Tom Hanks as it would surprise me, but it would surprise me. So there's Paul Rudd. The overall story is a lot of fun. There's a lot of great jokes throughout. Like you're laughing a good portion of the movie, and there's some pretty dire things happening, especially when you wrap it up in with the overall MCU and where we stand right now.
Well, it was a curious entry because it stands very much apart from the serious goings-on of the MCU. This a lot in the same way that is the case with Black Panther. A lot of this, certainly not all, but a lot of it felt removed from what's going on in the larger world. Mm-hmm. The implications seem very big for the larger world, but that they don't seem to tie in per se to the main story. Although I think we may find retroactively that will change. Absolutely. By next year. But at the time that you're watching this, in a lot of ways, it felt like it's fully its own story.
Mm-hmm. If you listen to the dialogue, and I have some notes here, which we'll get into when we get into the spoiler territory, and you touch on some of the dialogue from the first film, there are things that can so clearly describe what's going on if they want to go that route.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's certainly stuff, about, like the whole running joke about him calling him Cap.
Yeah. That's fun.
So like that's your tie-ins to the whole thing. That's kind of the thread that makes it be not its own movie completely.
Right, there's that, but I also mean like there's a lot of science talk going on throughout the movies, and there's very clear dialogue that can perk your ears up about what's going on in the greater MCU.
Which is what we have been speculating, you and I.
Yeah, for a while now.
Although I wouldn't say that it necessarily came to be in the way that I was speculating, but it's clear that we weren't that far off the mark in some ways.
Right, but that's a great way to do it, though, because in a scenario where they have to give us so much information and they have to give us tons of trailers and they're giving us 7 billion movies a year, to pull a fast one, you do need to distance. Like you like if you like, let's say if you want Ant-Man to play a really significant, surprising role, your best bet is to distance him as far as you can, so that you can just create that gap, so that you literally don't have anything to fill the gaps in with.
Well, it's certainly kind of an artificial version of like what they're doing with Captain Marvel, right? Where she's literally not been introduced yet.
Right. And
thus will fill a pretty big hole in the story. And in the same way with him being physically removed by not being part of the story of Infinity War, and having a couple of fun jokes about that. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm under house arrest, you know, blah, blah, blah. Which, by the way, I have something about that whole situation that we'll have to do post spoilers.
Okay. That's fun. Yeah.
No, again, I don't have anything to say after this.
You're killing me. You are absolutely killing me. But I mean, overall, like, if I would imagine if you're listening to us, you've probably already seen this. If not, you're one of those people that's gonna pause and go watch it and come back. So
it's fun. The funny thing is, this may be the first time. Well, it's the first time that a true sequel may have exceeded the first one in the story for any of the characters. Because I'll say Ragnarok beat out the first two, but it's different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. You know what I loved? There was just, I felt like there was so much backstory between the last time that we've seen Ant-Man and now, that even though time has lapsed and you don't really know exactly how it went down, they do a really good job of letting us jump ahead, but filling you in, but not beating you over the head with it.
Yes.
Like
actually, also, I realize I'm wrong, too. Captain America Civil War was also better than the first one.
Yeah.
But that one was much more obvious. This one, it's pretty close, but I think that the second one might be a better movie than the first one in this case as well.
That's fair. I think that's fair.
I think that there's obvious reasons for that.
It felt like they were feeling it out with the first one.
Well, there's a couple things. One, it's that inherent feeling out thing about of an origin story, right? Mm-hmm. Two, there was the noted behind the scenes issues. Yeah. Making that movie, firing the director halfway through, but still using his script. You know what I mean? Like, that's gonna make for some clunkiness. I think they did a pretty good job of patching up the seams so you don't see it, but it's there, especially upon rewatching it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Because I think they could have been a little bit more smooth in the whole execution. I think it feels almost stripped down in some cases where they didn't know how to make certain things fit and they had to cut them out. Mm-hmm. This one felt like its own self-contained entity, meaning
it's like more cohesive.
It was cohesively done from start to finish. Peyton Reed, instead of coming in and working off someone else's script, is now endemic to the writing of this script, and is part of it from start to finish. And on all these writers and director and everyone gets to know their character better. You know what I mean?
Right. It's such a funny thing because I love where it is right now. But there is always going to be that part of me that wants to know what the Edgar Wright Ant-Man.
Oh, sure. I mean, we're both big fans of Edgar Wright, so that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I thought that Peyton Reed's done a good job. I thought that they found their tone and they refined it, and the structure and the story, or not the story, the structure and kind of the language and how they want to execute all of that has been refined to be a better version of what the first one set the framework for.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a couple of things that I think we could still talk about before we get into spoiler territory. One is action sequences. What I really like about this is action sequences have gotten stale in these movies because it's just like over the top nonsense, crazy fighting for the most part in all of them. I think Iron Man, I like the third one. It's really like, okay, I have seen this before. In a lot of the other movies, it's very similar. They did a good job in Black Panther with all of the new fun tech. Mm-hmm. They did an even better job with this because having that ability to shrink and grow creates these incredibly fun scenes that you can't know what they're going to do next.
Well, it's also it's the nature of the character, whereas most of the other ones, whether it be through incredibly refined technical fighting skills or brawling nature, is going to lend itself to a lot of hand-to-hand combat and a certain style of choreography. Even if you're going to have a super refined version of like the Black Widow fighting, or you're going to have something a little bit more versatile like Captain America, or you can have a just out-and-out brawler of the Hulk. It all lends itself to a certain they changed the scale of it, right? But it's all going to be kind of a certain similarity.
Mhm.
Someone like Iron Man, even though you've seen multiple movies and use him, is a different style from that.
Yeah.
They finally owned it with Thor and Ragnarok by letting him be a god.
Yeah.
So that was
Just increase the scale a million%.
a breath of fresh air in that regards.
Yeah.
And like you said, they leaned into the tech with. They turned it into like a James Bond movie on steroids, right? With
it's mostly chaos,
Black Panther,
and just like letting it play out.
And this one is its completely own thing, so it still feels fresh, or it can be even fresher than it was because it's a completely different character with a completely different set of skills, and that it's not let me just beat up a bunch of people. It's constant changing of scales to micro to macro and all points in between, and that it's a lot of it's also like seems to be more played for gags.
Yeah.
Like, the truck shrinking and then popping up underneath it and shooting, throwing a giant Pez dispenser, all those sorts of things are, it's, and it's car chases instead of just people fighting and running.
Which makes me think like in the writer's room, they're like, let's have fun. Like how can we make this scene more fun? Like, and they just like throw a Pez out and they blow it up. Like that's just silly. It's like it's just a gag scene. It's just
and even going back to the first one because I watched because my sister actually went to go see this one with me, but she hadn't seen the first one, so she was watching it right before we went to go see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, you're gonna want to pay attention to this part when all of a sudden he throws like the little gadget that makes the things bigger,
mm-hmm.
and it blows that ant up. And the ant comes running down the stairs, and Bobby Cannavale screams like a little girl.
So good.
And then the sequence that, even though it was in the trailer, it still cracks me up just for the audacity of the scene. With it looks like a hardcore, action sequence around and on a train. And how many great ones of those have you seen? And then it blows up to seeing tiny little Thomas the Tank Engine hit something and just topple off the tracks. And I still crack up seeing that scene.
It's great. And the execution is perfect because they do that perfect thing of cutting out to real time.
Yep.
And then cutting back in. It's just really well done.
Because as they're showing the micro view of it, right, you hear the steam whistle, blowing. It sounds like they're on, like it's similar to like any, whether it be Speed or the original Mission Impossible or any movie that has any action sequence on a train, right?
Yep.
Super aggressive, the wind whipping, the pistons firing, all that stuff, and and also all the ants and him shooting the lasers and this and that, and it's just chaos and it's sound and it's all that, and then it pops out and it's boop and it falls off.
The tech overall is a lot of fun, and it's so cool, and it adds for not only those awesome action sequences, but there's a lot of cool like little things throughout. There's some big things that you might have seen in the trailers, like the shrinking headquarters type thing. Shrinks down the building that they're in and turns it into like a rollaway luggage suitcase. Like that's great. I love that. Some of the things to pay attention to.
Also, kind of became its own funny running joke throughout the course of the movie.
Yeah. Yes, it definitely did. But there's so many of like little things if you really pay attention, like in the background, that are either blown up or made small. And I can't wait to rewatch this movie over and over again and find more. Like for example, when they're in the like the mobile base, which is like that shrinking building that can become a suitcase. I'm pretty sure it's powered by like a gigantic D battery. If you look in the background, like there's just a battery that was blown up that is attached to things, and maybe that's the power like the gate that they make. But anyway, like there's so much like little stuff like that, like a giant Lego piece, or like
also even just having gigantic ants doing the grunt work,
right? Which is just fantastic, and they're like, and he can communicate with them with that, with the with his what was it the way that he did it? I
don't know, some little implant that lets him.
It's like what he's thinking he's transmitting.
Yeah.
To their antenna.
It's like through pheromones, like the way the ants do.
Which is so cool, and he's like, they like his little buddies.
Yeah.
Which is really fun to me. But
he doesn't quite have the same attachment that Scott has.
No. Oh God, no.
Naming them, which the name's getting more and more ridiculous.
It's phenomenal though. But like I said, just pay attention to the tech, because it's a lot of fun to watch, and I can't wait to rewatch it so that I can like look closer at different things and see what I could spot. But it's just so much fun. I think was there one other? Oh, not a spoiler. They do a similar thing in this movie with Lawrence Fishburne's character that they did with Michael Douglas in the first, of showing you them back in the day. Their reverse aging technology is absurd. Like, it looks too good. Like, you can put a young Lawrence Fishburne in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous. You can tell, obviously, because I do believe that the main reason you can tell is because you know Lawrence Fishburne and you know what he looks like now.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that creates that gap. But if you took an older person that we've never seen on screen, pass them through this special effect, and put them on screen as a younger person, I don't think you'd be able to realize that.
Yeah, it's probably true.
Because
it's that frame of reference being different.
Exactly, and you just wouldn't be looking for it. And if you can just let that happen in passing, they'd get away with it. And it's incredible. Other than that, Michael Pena kills it again. He's so funny. Actually, the whole crew is funny.
I'm glad that they gave all three of them a little bit more to do.
Yeah, that was good. Lots of good running jokes and callbacks, but we'll get into those. I don't think I have anything else other than I thoroughly enjoyed this film and suggest it before we get into spoilers.
It was a nice breather from the stakes. I mean, like, this stuff was important, but the stakes were way lower, and this was way more of a fun movie than Infinity War, that it was super necessary in that level of, like, scheduling.
Yeah.
And it's just a silly movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even more than the first one in a lot of ways. Even though some of the stuff was more serious and dire, the implications of it.
Right. Because of the implication.
Because of the implication. But overall, the tone felt a lot sillier when they allowed it to be.
Yeah. For sure. With that, shall we lift the veil?
Sure.
All right, so we are officially in spoiler territories for Ant-Man and the Wasp. I want to jump back, you know what? Let's start at the end.
Okay.
And here's why. This movie has a great cliffhanger for a season finale of a TV show.
Yes.
If this was any other circumstance, any other movie, this would infuriate people.
Also, again, it comes down to the timing. This coming out after Infinity War, they can get away with it.
Well, it's not. I think it's more so how soon the resolution is coming, more than that.
Well, you still got to wait a year.
Well, you do, but it's just a year, which is why I say that it's a good TV series finale. You got to wait a year. It comes back, and they tell you what happened. That's exactly what we're getting here.
Yeah.
If you gave me this, like, I don't know, Fellowship of the Ring style, like, I think I'd be a little frustrated.
Well, but also that still, you also knew it was only going to be 1 year.
Fellowship to Two Towers is more than that.
It was 1 year.
No.
They shot those three movies back to back, but they released them in 2001, 2002, 2003.
Was it really 1 year?
Yeah.
All right, I'll take your word for it because you're, like, weirdly obsessed with them. But there's.
I challenge you on the word weirdly.
Okay. But you get what I'm saying, though. Like, if you were to if it was to be a film that you were to and not know necessarily when the sequel was coming, or know that they'll do a sequel, but it's not going to be ready for a few years because they haven't even started production on it, that would be like a rough cliffhanger.
Yes.
For a TV show, it's not rough. The reason this works is because we're getting the resolution less than a year away.
Yes. And
I commend them for it, though, because it's a doozy, because that movie is a lot of it's a lot of fun jokes. There's a lot of there's high stakes in concept, but they're not really that high as they're happening. And then when you get that final post-credit scene, it's just like, well, sorry, not final post-credit scene. The final post-credit scene is ridiculous. The second post-credit scene, right? Is there three? Two. So the first post-credit scene of him just being trapped. He's now trapped in the quantum realm. Like that's like because everybody else has disappeared. That's horrible. And honestly, like I felt like almost like kind of suffocating by that because like that whole realm I think is so cool to see on screen. But the longer that it's on screen, I get like weirdly nervous, like like I'm uncomfortable.
Well, because it's so alien to the experience of space and time as we're familiar with it.
Yep.
And it's one of those things. It's like being trapped in the black emptiness of space, right? Where it's like it's so inhospitable as to be like impossible to comprehend.
Right. It's crazy, and it makes me uncomfortable. But what I think is he's the only character that they can do it with, because I fully expect the next time we see him, he's going to be floating through that realm and being Major Tom to ground control. Like he's going to be having like a good time in some way, shape, or form, because that's the character that we've come to expect.
It was very deftly executed because it's like, I know he's going to get out of it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't tell how.
Right.
And that's something. Usually it's like, oh, what's his name is going to come get him. You know what I mean? Like, oh, he'll be fine. And it's like, I know he'll be fine, but will he be fine? Yeah.
It's like he is banished for minimum 10 months.
The other thing is, he got completely left out of Infinity War. Are they just going to do that to him again? Like,
oh my God, that'd be terrible.
Is it just going to be a constant fuck you to Ant-Man?
I do wonder, though, do you think that post-credits of Captain Marvel, do we get some tease at a resolution of this, or a tease of the resolution of Infinity War?
Probably more likely that. Well, it'll be some specific tie-in to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could see it being the post-credit being her receiving the message from what's his name?
Yeah.
Nick Fury.
Yeah.
Because I imagine that all, if not all, then like 95% of this movie will be all that taking place in the 1990s or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we'll see the resolution to Ant-Man's rescue specifically, probably. I think it would be great if that Major Tom thing was also a post-credit thing.
God, I hope it is.
Not him being saved.
Just him singing? Oh my God, that would be amazing.
And like that's all we see of him, like, a 15-second segment of that, and then
just to show you that he'll be relevant in the next movie.
Yes.
I think that's a perfect way to do it.
Yes. If I could get in contact with any Marvel, if I could find a direct line to Kevin Feige or whoever.
My God.
I don't even know who's directing. I know they hired they had to because the movie's done shooting. Actually, I think they did co-directors, right? It's a man and a woman co-directing Captain Marvel.
Is it? I don't even know. I don't know too many details about it.
I think it was, and I'm going to look at that right now.
I'm very excited to go into Captain Marvel knowing nothing about Captain Marvel.
I mean, we'll find out something eventually.
Yeah, well, I just mean, like, I don't know backstory. Right. I don't know things like that.
What's that?
I'm just saying, like, I don't know backstory. Like, I don't know I don't really know anything about the character. And I like that because I didn't know anything about Ant-Man going in. And I think that just made it that much more entertaining to me.
I think that Captain Marvel in this iteration, the Carol Danvers one, it sounds like just bringing up this movie is kind of funny. The backstory to the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern, I believe that their backstories are very similar. Fighter pilot somehow runs into supernatural being that grants them their powers.
Interesting.
I believe that's the high level.
That's cool. We'll see. We'll see where that goes. The one thing we do know, or that I do know from you and from some random articles that I read, that Captain Marvel taking place in the 90s. Right. So.
Damn it! Now you got me with that thing.
Which thing?
Where I thought you were gonna keep talking and you didn't.
No, just looking for the nod there. So when
I'm not really bothering with that because I don't know from me to you, but you to me, your voice and the video is not in any way, shape, or form synced up.
Oh, that's great.
That's
That's
part of
helpful.
the reason that I keep looking away and watching the screen up there, because it's become really distracting watching you talk, because it's like so far off from the audio that it's like almost making me nauseous.
I'll just hide my mouth behind the microphone. All right. So what I was getting at was, Captain Marvel taking place in the 90s. This is information that you gave me. What I really thought was funny, and I feel like is a nod to that, was the "was up" joke. I just feel like that was a 90s throwback just for the sake of, let's do this.
Also, be curious to see, going back to the whole de-aging thing, they're going to be doing that to Samuel L.
Ooh. That'll be fun.
He's a main character of that movie. Like, he's not...
Right. Oh, that'll be awesome.
He's going to be on screen much more in that than he has been in any of the others, I think.
You know what would be so Samuel L. Jackson? Is if he was just like, no, I'm just going to do it like I am now.
I do not age.
Yeah. That'd be great. So let's talk about Michael Pena for a second.
Wait, hang on. Before we do that, because I was going to get it in, but we ended up into an interesting tangent that I didn't want to stop. Still going back to those post-credit things, assorted post-credit things, what we were missing in this movie was a post-credit of Jeremy Renner sitting on a couch.
That's it.
No, one other thing.
Han?
Yes.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
Yes, no, I was thinking that too dark, even funnier, because you could do it before you did the one with Scott getting caught in the quantum realm.
Yeah.
Him sitting on the couch, like reading something or like fiddling with something, or just staring off into space. And Han, was that the phone? Someone called? No. Still no one was calling. Oh, okay.
No one. So sad.
Just that. That's it.
He ran out of arrows. Oh my god. So Michael Pena, so funny, gets to do his rambling from the first movie, which I absolutely love. When he's on the truth serum and he's just running through the story with all the details that are completely unnecessary.
Drunk history did.
Which is also, the truth serum was a great joke with a nice callback.
So basically it's truth serum? No, it's not truth serum.
No.
Oh my god, it is truth serum.
Yeah. that was ridiculous. Did you catch what the name of their company is?
XCOM.
So good.
Yep.
So good.
You know, the first time I saw it on screen, it didn't register, and then I saw it again. I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, that's wonderful. But the most important thing about that whole scene where he's on the truth serum is how they were previously freaking out, and the one wacky one was talking about Baba Yaga.
Yes.
And when she pops into the
thing.
screen and pops back out, and he says it,
yes,
the entire theater was hysterical.
Yes.
Like that is a really well-timed punchline to that minor setup like 20 minutes earlier.
Yes.
It was just excellently executed.
Both of us are struggling way too much.
Ooh, it's tough.
I mean, I get it's a Monday. That's what it is. See, we usually record on a Tuesday.
We're thrown off completely. It's terrible.
It's a Monday.
The ghost character.
Yes. The ghost.
The ghost. The witch-like character. Here's my problem. Who decided... Like, at what point was it decided that a witch-like character moves like this?
A witch whose witchliness is not magic, but is instead quantum science?
See, in her situation, it makes sense.
Yes.
But I'm talking about other witches. Scarlet Witch. Terrible character from the DC movie. What?
Who?
Which one was it? It was Suicide Squad?
Suicide Squad. Sorry, I keep forgetting that that's part of the DCEU.
That's probably good for you.
I think everyone should forget that it exists, but also it's so loosely tied to the rest of them. Like,
but anyway, what I'm getting at, let's not even.
Hey, don't forget they're making a sequel to that.
Stop this! Just stop it. What I'm getting at is what they do is, or what I assume they're doing, is they shoot a scene and then they just like cut out every third frame.
and then also shoot the scene again and
it's like
reinsert a new frame.
Yeah, the character's just like bouncing forward, and with the quantum character, it makes sense, right? But I'm just averse to that because the stupid other witches that we've dealt with that move like this bother me.
See, I only saw Suicide Squad once.
Suicide.
Not nearly as understandable nor as fun as Mark Scruffalo. Callback.
I like Mark Scruffalo.
I keep forgetting that one, like a lot of the specifics of that movie, thank God. But actually, if you want to draw, if you feel compelled to draw a parallel between Ghost and Scarlet Witch, especially since they're in the same universe, I actually like that comparison in the sense that they don't actually really move similarly. She is much more fluid, and this is much more jarring because it's that whole binary idea of being in one place or the other at all times.
I don't think Scarlet Witch moves fluidly.
Well, they do slow motion a lot, so
she's bouncing around like the other one.
I'm picturing that one scene where she comes out of the church in Ultron after she has her whole thing with Jeremy Renner.
Yeah.
So,
well, the scene where when she's like popping up to people and like kind of implanting terrible things in their brain, she bounces into those scenes and bounces out of them, and that's what I associated that movement with, and that bothers me because it makes sense for this character to do that.
Both of them are constantly
in and out.
They're both constantly doing like the whole smoke bomb thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think it works for this character, but I want to stop seeing that for witches.
Okay. I really wouldn't consider her a witch per se.
No, she can have it. Ghost
but
can have it.
Certainly, yes, the nature of the character, it very much makes sense for that to be the case.
But it's like they've used this effect, and the effect is used for a different character that has a different range of abilities. This is something that I should not be hung up on. But for whatever reason I am.
You should not be hung up on
this. But for whatever reason I am, and it bothers me.
You want me to talk about weird things? You want to talk about weird things to be hung up on?
Yeah.
Did you know that what they're doing was risky?
Oh my God.
They might have said...
They didn't say that at all.
No, never. They definitely didn't say it 30 times in the first 45 minutes.
Oh my God. Let me just express to you the gravity of the situation. It's risky.
Like, they did it so many times, and after the first 8, I'm like, okay, I get it. It's risky.
Right, just do it already so that we can see if it works out.
Stop telling me it's risky. Show me that it's risky, goddammit.
Right.
Which is funny.
Yeah, that was a little frustrating.
This is another one of those things where it's like, something I shouldn't really be hung up on because it's not like this made it a bad movie. It's still a very good movie. I enjoyed it very much, but it's like, okay, we get it.
Yeah.
Like
just do it already.
You get like 2 or 3 of those, and I'm pretty sure there had to have been like 8 to 10.
Yeah, it was.
And all of them in the first half of the movie, so it felt like there was 30.
It's just like we need to express to you that the stakes are high, and we've run out of ways to do it.
Yes.
But here's another problem.
It was an unfortunate example of tell, don't show.
Yes, exactly. Another problem, though, this conflict could have been completely averted if the villain wasn't such a bitch.
Well, there was definitely... you know what? I'm going to say no.
No?
Because it fits with the theme of communication issues that is actually kind of the whole movie.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I could see that.
There was a breakdown of communication between all of the principals of this movie throughout the whole movie.
Uh-huh.
Scott not being open with the Pims / Van Dynes. I realized she's his daughter, and I'm like, oh, wait, no, she doesn't actually have the same last name. With Hope and Hank. Yeah. What's his name? I can't even remember what Goliath, what his actual name was. Was it Bill?
Lawrence Fishburne.
Yes, but... Hey, I was right. Bill Foster.
Nice.
His lack of communication with Hank.
Yeah.
communication with all of them. It was kind of a running theme of the whole thing that all of these people who had so much to offer to the world had a fundamental breakdown of communication that caused all of these problems.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that take on it, and that makes sense. And I imagine that's probably what they were getting at. That's solid when you think about it in that light.
It was very subtly done because I honestly, this isn't something I've been thinking of. It's only as you said that it really kind of clicked for me.
Sure.
So the more I think about this, the more I like it.
But which is great, and I think that makes a lot of sense for like the grudges between like Hank and what was it, Bill?
Yes.
That makes sense there. That makes sense for like that's like the reason behind the grudge of Hank and his daughter, and now Scott and Hank, and now Scott and the Wasp. What's her name? What's the character's name?
Hope.
Scott and Hope. It does make a lot of sense in all of those realms. The one that bothers me a little bit though is this ghost one. The character is, I understand she's in pain. I get that. They tried to convey that. I understand that she's going to die. But there's nothing about the character that makes me think that she's, or that led me to believe that she was not immoral, but I'm going to go with that for lack of a better word right now, that she would be willing to like kind of toss people aside to like, she's getting two characters arrested probably for good in some of her actions. She's going to do something that she knows is going to prevent somebody else from potentially living.
You know, there must have been a scene or two that was clipped from earlier in the movie because I didn't think about that in that way, but it pairs well with something else that I did think of, in that there was a big jump from her having this unsolvable condition to that condition killing her. Just like there was a big jump from her doing her own thing to her ruthlessly doing her own thing.
Right.
It didn't feel like there was an ample setup to either of those things that dovetail together, like that they're inextricably linked together. There was something missing earlier in the movie to make those two leaps together that would have made it more coherent. That's the only bit that's I think is clunky, is whatever ties that were supposed to bind those two endpoints together felt like they were missing.
Yeah, and I think even more so when you were trying to, as someone that obviously can't possibly grasp the science that they're trying to like explain to you, but like if
but I don't think that I don't think it had to be part of that.
It doesn't. What I'm saying though is there's definitely a piece missing that would kind of drive her to these extremes, which that makes sense. That I can get behind if that was the case, because what could have solved this has been like, hey, like when you open this gate to the quantum realm, can I stand here? Like, because that's pretty much the extent of what she needed.
Yeah.
So it's just like no, we're busy. Go away, kid. Like she could have just snuck into the place while they were doing it. That would have been enough. But no, she's like taking charge and throwing people to the side and like essentially killing
also
people.
A conversation like, hey, so you want me to get my wife back? I want me to get my wife back. So let's try that first, and then we'll see about, sucking her essence out of her to make you better. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what? She's been in there for 30 years. Let's see if she has any insights.
Let's all play on the same. It's like Hunger Games. Like, let's all play on the same team until it's just the two of us.
Yes. Let's do one of those whole enemy of my enemy things.
Yeah. Yep. Let's take a step back to something that you mentioned earlier of Scott naming his ants. Those were some great names.
Yes, and I realized that as much as I enjoyed them, I forgot them now because I saw it like 8 days ago.
Well, it was
something
Anton was from the first movie.
Anthony.
Sorry, you're right. Anthony from the first movie. Ulysses S. Grant.
Yes.
Was one, and then Antonio Banderas.
Yes.
And when they die, it's heartbreaking
every time.
No.
The first one was actually in the first movie when Anthony died. It was actually really dramatic.
Yeah,
especially because they ended it with the one wing floating to the ground.
That was horrendous. It was absolutely awful.
I almost shed a tear.
I might have. But
although after a certain point, they then started playing up the comedic angle of it when the birds kept swooping in.
Right. That was terrible, though, because that's how he loses both Ulysses and Antonio, isn't it?
Yeah, like and then he didn't have time to start naming them, and it ate another like 5 of them.
Oh my god, terrible. That was terrible, but hysterical.
Yes. Wait, there was one more name, wasn't there? Because didn't they name during the very beginning when him and his daughter were going through the little maze they built? Didn't they name the little? It was a fake ant. There was a name for that one too.
I don't even know. I might have missed that one.
There definitely was. I just can't remember.
I believe it. I believe it. Anthony. So silly. So silly. I love that though. That's just like such a silly little running thing that they do. I have a note here that says the family dynamic is hysterical, and I want you to tell me what family I'm talking about.
All of them?
I'm talking about Scott, his daughter, his ex-wife, and his ex-wife's now husband. Because that dynamic is amazing. Because for whatever reason, Bobby Cannavale loves him.
Yeah, it was a really jarring switch from him being kind of a stick in the mud in the first one, as well as not really enjoying his company in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Until like the very end where it was like kind of a grudging respect.
Yeah, which is, well, that's kind of funny because it does fully turn around in the first movie. When they're having dinner at the table
it had
at the
a
end,
coherent arc.
Yeah, it did. Now it's just over the top.
Yes.
And
you know what it reminded me of? Such a jarring, like flipping switch in that way was. You must have seen it. I don't know if you remember it well. The remake of The Longest Yard with Adam Sandler.
I haven't seen it.
Really?
No.
Huh. It came out at the time where I would have figured it would be something you would have seen.
Nope. Never saw it.
So there's a storyline, the whole basic premise of The Longest Yard being that quarterback gets arrested and thrown in prison, plays with a bunch of scrubs who are conmen, or not conmen, or convicts, and they play a exhibition game against a semi-pro team that's consisting of the guards of the prison. And there's a guard who is one of the tough guys. They're all supposed to be, hardened dudes, and they're all kind of jerks. But one of them is on steroids. Mm-hmm. There's probably more than one, but in one in particular, and the cons break into the locker room of the guards, and they swap out the guy's steroids for estrogen pills. And he starts becoming much more in tune with his emotions, and he starts
That's funny.
Acquiring some more feminine body issues. That you would not expect on a man.
Right. Imperfect movie faster than it happens overnight as well.
No, I mean, it's supposed to be taking place over the course of a couple of weeks, but it's a quick transition. Like, you see it, and then, 5 minutes later, it's, I think he started lactating or something like that. Oh, my God.
That's right. It's like Super Troopers.
But, but all of a sudden, kind of like that, yes. But there's this whole thing where, he, starts crying for no reason, this and that, which is, you can get into how you feel about that in 2018, but that flipping of the switch to a guy being kind of a tough, no nonsense guy to all of a sudden being effusive out of nowhere was pretty jarring for me.
Yeah.
There was no progression from grudging respect to
right.
He needs to get in on a group hug at all times.
That's fair. I mean, I just assume
not that
the
the big
transition
thing,
is
it was
over.
just kind of odd.
The transition is over that gap in time between, I guess, but what happened in between is what's really.
That's what I'm saying. It's just jarring how different it is. Not that it is different.
I do love it though because it's so silly.
Yes,
it did make me laugh.
In that case, it's in keeping with the tone of the movie. So,
speaking of ridiculous relationships, I love the relationship that Scott and his daughter have.
Yes, it's fine.
It's so silly. Number one, grandma. And she's just it's almost like her weirdness, like and their silly relationship, and the fact that he just 100% gets her is just a straight callback to the birthday scene in the first one, where he gives her the most hideous stuffed animal ever known,
and that she overjoyed exclaims, "It's so ugly."
Yeah. Yep.
But like,
and he goes, "I know."
It's so ugly, and she couldn't be any more happy with how ugly that stuffed animal was.
It's so great. He just gets her. So silly. Love it. Where I had something else that I was going to jump in on that. I'm just going to jump ahead to a different note that I have until I can find my way back to that. The Stan Lee cameo in this one was pretty great.
It was pretty late in the movie, right? I can't remember.
It's very late in the movie. His car gets wiped out during one of the action sequences, and he says, "The 60s were great, but now I'm paying for it."
Yes.
Which just
a great inside joke. You know what I mean?
and also, like, yeah, if you want to take it in either way, it's just
or like
fantastic.
fourth wall break, I guess.
Yeah. I believe both the joke of these are when I created the characters, and also I've probably done a lot of acid.
Yeah.
Which is just wonderful. But I love seeing him make his way into all these movies. Now let's talk about speaking of relationship. This is what I wanted to say before. Going back to probably, arguably, the best scene in the movie is when Scott takes on the persona of Michelle Pfeiffer's character.
Yes, you've got her name, didn't you?
Yeah, I couldn't think of her actual name in the movie.
Her name's Janet.
Thank you, of Janet. And the weird thing about it is it's so funny, but at the same time weirdly charming and comforting. Yeah, he killed it. And like to the point where like him and Michael Douglas holding hands.
Oh yeah.
It's supposed to be silly, but you also want to hug them. Like,
yeah, it ended up feeling pretty heartwarming.
In that moment, you're Bobby Cannavale.
But actually, the best part about all of that is, and they don't give the joke very long to sit there, which is the right way to handle it, I think, at the very end. Why are we holding hands?
Yeah. How'd I get up here? No, he just, how'd I get up here? And then he lifts his hand up and he's holding
and they're still holding No, but I thought it was incredible how much he leaned into, like, he was so motherly.
Yep, like touching her face.
Yes. Like honey, I love you so much. You've made me so proud. And
he's like smiling so wide with like a little tear in his eye.
That's what I'm saying. It's so motherly, which is such a weird way to describe Paul Rudd.
But then he,
like, not fatherly, he is specifically motherly.
Right. And he immediately snaps out of it, though. And for him to transition that quickly and for you to pick up, like, and to understand it happening, like, his delivery, like, I can't imagine how many times they had to shoot that scene.
I mean, because they were probably cracking up the whole time.
They had to be. You can't,
because he puts on like something of a falsetto and everything, you know.
Yeah, I can't wait for the blooper reel of that movie, because I'm certain there's going to be some gems in there.
Yeah, that could be funny.
That'll be a good time. One other thing that I wanted to touch on was the sleepy giant thing. Where like we get a notion up front that how he like slept for 3 days after he went 65 feet, and then when he's bigger later on, you're like, oh no, and he's just like, he falls into the water. So good, so silly. I really enjoyed the other bad guy in the movie. He was entertainingly bad. He
was a classic Walton Goggins type.
And yes, and he was he got that truth serum at the end, which was that was your callback to the truth serum.
Did he get it, or was it the? Yeah, I guess it was him, right?
Yeah, I think they shoot all of them with it.
Yeah.
And then and he goes, "Oh my god, it is truth serum."
Yeah.
Oh man, that was perfect.
He did a good job. I just enjoy him in general. Another HBO show, if you haven't watched it, that you should watch is that he's in is Vice Principals.
Oh yeah. I want to watch that. I just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Is it still going?
No. So what it was they shot the 2 seasons of it back to back, and it was
Okay.
always planned. It was always planned to be 2 seasons,
Oh, okay, that's cool. I like
and
that.
they released them a year apart or whatever.
Nice. Then that's a relatively small commitment then to get into.
Yeah, he is so ridiculous in that show.
Yeah.
And him and Danny McBride are excellent together. Their chemistry is really good.
That's great. I'll have to watch that.
And it was very clever, and it really like breaks any form of expectations. It does not end in the way like I am pretty good at figuring out, and I figure out things along the way in that show. It genuinely shocked. Well, I don't want to say shocked because I want to like set it up to be something that it isn't in any way. But like, I was genuinely surprised with how it ended. I could not pin it down before it was over.
Nice. I like that. That's good. It's nice to. If you couldn't, then I'm sure like I'll probably be in the same boat watching it. So that's fun. Although maybe now I'll be speculating wildly and and I'll figure it out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's like a mystery in any way. It's just things really didn't play out. I mean, I was able to pick up little things, but it genuinely ended in a way that I was not expecting it to.
Right. Cool. I'll have to give it a chance.
But yeah, he's entertaining in that role, and I mean, I didn't see the new Tomb Raider. I know he's the bad guy in that.
Yeah.
And I didn't watch Justified. I know he was on that for a long time.
What other notes do you have? Because I'm tapped out.
Well, I did want to talk a little bit about kind of the structure of this movie, especially in regards to the villains.
Okay.
Because I haven't read too much in the way of full reviews of the movie after seeing it. I read 1 or 2 spoiler-free ones before I saw it. And so I didn't see a lot about the villains in this, and I'm wondering what the conversation outside of our little sphere of this here is. Whether people are irritated or are down on the fact that this didn't have one big central villain. Because it was kind of an unconventional structure in that regard for any movie, let alone a superhero movie. Right? You know, typically you have one main villain or a villain and henchman type of thing. And this kind of had elements of all of those things, but really they ended up being more plot points than specific characters.
Yeah.
But I a lot of times I feel like that would be points against this, but I actually thought it ended up being a good fit for this movie.
I think so too, because I think they were trying to keep it away from it being like a good guys versus bad guys thing, where it was like a good guys trying to solve this impossible time constraint, and along the way there's stuff in the way. Yes,
time was the true villain in this, and everything else was obstacles, which I actually liked that, because it's again another way that they can keep trying to break the mold with this sort of thing, right? Rather than set up a big bad. Especially because of the difficulty they've had getting that to work on screen. They basically said, listen, we don't have a big, strong, compelling villain, so let's not even try and let people down. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I'm worried people are still going to look at it like, oh, the bad guys weren't that interesting or that good or whatever. I thought she was interesting. I thought he was good.
Yeah.
And I thought all of it in conjunction was kind of a greater than the sum of its parts type of deal.
Yeah.
Because they are a little bit smaller stakes, and it was kind of a cool way that it was like this web that kept weaving and unweaving, where you don't know how it's all going to come back together next as they collide, and then they separate and collide and separate. You know what I mean?
It was a lot of... I like that if you think about the internals of that quantum realm and like the chaos that's going on in there, I feel like the outside world is just a reflection of that.
Yeah, that's, I think, the right way to put it, because that's one of, if I had to pick 2 words to describe how the main aspects of these movies took place once, you know, he's back in the game, you know, after that whole stuff with his daughter and the company and all that, you know, the 2 best words I think to describe this movie are chaotic and frenetic, because it keeps moving, keeps like it doesn't give you too long. And the couple of times that they do let you sit down and breathe is important stuff or exposition stuff, but it doesn't ever feel like it drags.
Yeah, and the frenetic works as a theme as well because like you're popping in and out of nonsense throughout the movie, just like Ghost is, just like you would be in a quantum realm. Like it's cool. I feel like you can make a lot of assumptions, but they've got enough people working on these things that I feel like those things are probably intentional and thought out. Yes,
it didn't feel like plot holes. It didn't feel like poor writing. It felt by design, and I think that's why it worked. Mm-hmm. And I guess I could see people not liking it, but it feels more like you not getting it.
Yeah.
Which I don't want to project that on people per se, but because I haven't seen that being the reaction. The thing is, I just haven't seen a ton of reaction in general. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if that's the case, but I could see that being the case. You know what I mean?
For sure. For sure.
But yeah, I think there's a good point in that Ghost is kind of an avatar of that chaotic, frenetic structure of the movie.
Yeah. It's cool. It's a good take. What else you got?
Nothing really. I did think it was kind of funny that it's kind of a big fuck you from Thanos, the whole way that the movie ends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, like we've solved this impossible thing. Not.
Ooh, fuck you.
Yeah. And now you're stuck in here.
Also, we spent literally this whole movie trying to get Janet out of the quantum room, and she's gone.
Yeah.
Which I guess that kind of made her overall, like Michelle Pfeiffer, like underused in this movie because she doesn't really get a ton of screen time.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I think it's safe to say that she's not done.
Probably not.
And I don't think they would have used Michelle Pfeiffer for that alone.
That's true. They probably would have picked someone a little less well-known. I was compelled enough by her performance to be curious to see a more longer-form take on her character.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited. I'm just very excited to see where this goes. I'm really excited for Captain Marvel. Obviously, I'm ridiculously excited for Avengers 4 and can't wait to see how this all plays out.
And kind of in the same way that we talked a couple weeks ago with Hotel Artemis, with Sophia Boutella kind of becoming this full-fledged action star. I'm feeling the same way about Evangeline Lilly as well. She's really good.
Yeah.
Between these movies and the Hobbit movies, even if those movies aren't particularly great, I thought she did a good job in those as well. And again, it's convincing in that physical role. Mm-hmm. And I like the main cast, all of it. It's now become rather extended cast. They all have pretty good chemistry together.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Even something stupid like that in that exchange between I almost called him Martin Sheen. Oh my gosh,
Douglas,
Michael Douglas, and Michael Pena. Yeah, and the whole who could have ever thought that after we robbed your house that you'd be here? Not me.
Yeah. I love what in that exchange of all of them in that office though together where he's like, why is my desk so small? No, this is ridiculous. Like you took advantage of it. No, we need to focus on the problem at hand, guys. Come on. It's good. I can't wait to watch this again. I'm excited for it. Like I'm excited to sit down and dig into it again and then and really focus to everything going on, every little thing in the background, every little detail, and see what kind of stuff I can pull out of it.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, that's it for this week's Flix in a Six. Thank you for joining us. If you want to keep the conversation going, I'm at AJ Costanzo on Twitter and Instagram. Al is at Alessandro B 1187. Check out the Flix Flipboard magazine to follow the stories that we cover each week.
Finishing strong.
And Flix in a Six on Instagram for teasers of what's to come. We'll be back next week with more movie and beer goodness. We have not decided the film yet. But stay tuned for more information. Until next time, cheers.